This fungus looks like it's bleeding. Right now, thick red droplets are oozing up through its pale surface, beating across it like fresh blood welling out of a wound. But the fungus isn't hurt, and it isn't dying. It's doing this on purpose. And believe it or not, the bleeding one is among the more normal things in this room. Before these 9 minutes are over, you'll meet a fungus that erupts from a buried egg like red fingers clawing their way out of the soil. A fungus that builds itself into a perfect geometric cage with no one designing it, and one that doesn't reflect light in the dark but makes its own glowing green like something switched on. None of these are computer effects. They're all real, and every one of them solve the problem of staying alive in a way that looks like it breaks the rules of biology. Welcome to the lab. Today's specimens are the impossible fungi, the ones that grow, spread, and survive in ways that shouldn't make sense. If that's your kind of strange, the subscribe button keeps the lab doors open. First specimen. Let's start with the one from the intro, the bleeding tooth fungus. At first glance, it looks less like a living thing and more like something wounded, slowly leaking dark red drops across a pale, almost tooth-like surface. But those red beads aren't blood at all. They're forced out through a process called guttation, where the fungus pushes excess fluid to the surface as pressure builds inside it, like a sponge being squeezed from within. And here's the part that surprises people. Beneath that violent appearance, this is one of the gentlest organisms in the forest. It wraps itself around the roots of conifer trees and helps them pull nutrients from the soil more efficiently, trading favors underground. The blood is a lie. Those droplets contain a compound called atramentin, which has been studied for its antibacterial properties. As it ages, the droplets vanish, the soft flesh hardens into something dark and cork-like, and it fades quietly back into the forest floor, as if the bleeding never happened. That one only looks violent. This next one actually behaves like something out of a horror film. Devil's fingers. It doesn't grow the way a mushroom should. It erupts. It begins life as a pale, soft egg sitting in the leaf litter, and then that egg splits open, and several bright red arms burst out, curling and reaching upward like fingers clawing their way out of a grave. The whole eruption is driven by internal pressure, and it happens in hours, not days. The horror movie look is the entire strategy. Native to Australia and New Zealand, this fungus is mimicking dead, rotting flesh on purpose. Right down to the color. Flies arrive almost immediately, fooled into thinking they found a corpse to feed on. Those red arms are coated in a dark, sticky layer packed with spores, so every fly that lands walks away carrying them. Instead of trusting the wind to spread its spores, it hires scavengers to do it. And it travels well on human help too. It's thought to have reached Europe over a century ago, around 1914, carried in on wool shipments during the First World War, and once the spores are gone, the whole structure collapses and rots away within days, leaving almost nothing behind. The devil's fingers wins by looking dead. This next one wins by growing faster than almost anything alive. The veiled lady. Here's what makes it impossible. It rises in the dark, and by the time the sun comes up, it has already built its entire visible fruiting body in a matter of hours, standing fully formed and draped in a delicate white lace skirt that hangs almost to the ground. That whole structure, the stalk, the cap, the lace, assembles itself in a single morning. Watch a time-lapse and it looks less like growth and more like something inflating into existence. That speed is the strategy. It can't compete with bigger, tougher fungi over the long run, so it doesn't try. It races, building fast, reproducing fast, and finishing before anything else gets the chance. The lace skirt isn't decoration either. It spreads out the scent it uses to call in insects who pick up its spores and carry them off. But the beauty barely lasts. The veil starts breaking down almost the instant it finishes forming, which is why catching one at its peak is so rare. In some places, especially in Chinese cuisine, people prize it as a delicacy, valued not for that fleeting beauty, but for its texture. Quick pause. We're right in the middle of the lab. So tell me in the comments, which of these would you actually want growing in your own garden? Be honest. I'll tell you the one I'd keep above all the others at the very end. because the next two stop relying on looks entirely and start solving problems with pure design. The Starfish Fungus. This one's trick is where it aims. Many fungi release their spores upward or outward, betting on flying insects or a breeze. The Starfish Fungus does the opposite. It begins hidden and compact, then slowly unfolds several thick arms that press flat against the ground, like a star stamped into the soil. By staying low and flat, it isn't advertising to the sky at all. It's targeting the traffic on the forest floor, the ants and crawling insects that walk right over it. The shape keeps it stable and almost impossible to knock over, and it builds a low, open platform that puts its spores directly in the path of whatever crawls past. Found in Australia and New Zealand, it tends to appear when the leaf litter around it is rich and damp with decay. It does give off a faint smell of rot to seal the deal, but the real weapon is the geometry, an organism shaped to hand its spores to the ground itself. That one targets the floor. This next one builds something that looks engineered, the Latticed Stinkhorn. It emerges already shaped like a hollow cage, a bright red lattice of curved openings that looks designed rather than grown, like someone welded it together out of bone. But no one did, and that geometry is the entire point. A solid stalk only lets an insect land on the outside. A cage lets them crawl through it, in and out of every opening, brushing against far more spore-covered surface on a single visit. The fungus turns its own body into a passage instead of a wall, multiplying how much each visitor picks up. The open framework also keeps the structure light, holds more surface area in less material, and lets rainwater pass through instead of pooling, which would interfere with the spores. It isn't winning with height, or color, or even mainly with smell. It's winning with architecture, a shape that does the work a solid body never could. Which brings us to the last specimen, and the only one that doesn't deal in shapes or scents at all. Instead, it does something none of the others can: the bioluminescent fungus. In total darkness, it doesn't reflect light, because there's no light to reflect. It makes its own, glowing a steady, eerie green that looks almost artificial, like a small light left on in the middle of the woods. That glow comes from a chemical reaction inside its cells, where compounds similar to luciferin are oxidized by enzymes, releasing their energy as visible light instead of heat. The leading explanation is that the glow is bait. It draws in insects moving through the forest at night, raising the odds that they'll brush past and carry its spores away. And the timing is no accident. The light burns brightest exactly when the fungus is producing the most spores, lining up the lure with the moment it matters. It turns the darkness itself into a tool. Species and groups like Mycenae and Armillaria glow from different parts of their bodies, from caps to stems to the hidden threads buried inside rotting wood, and the fact that it shows up in so many unrelated fungi suggests this trick evolved more than once. The reaction is highly efficient, releasing much of its energy as light rather than heat. This one doesn't rely on shock or speed or clever design. It relies on patience, holding its light steady in the dark for as long as it's alive. So what do all of these fungi actually have in common, beyond looking like they escaped from a nightmare? Every single one of them is solving the exact same problem, and it's not the one you guess. Fungi can't move, and most of them can't count on the wind. So the entire challenge of their lives comes down to one thing: how do you get your spores to travel when you're anchored in place, and invisible most of the time? Every strange feature in this room is an answer to that one question. The fake blood, the clawing red fingers, the impossible speed, the bone-like cage, the glowing green light. None of it is random, and none of it is cruelty. It's just fungi solving the problem of how to spread, using the only tools they have: color, chemistry, shape, speed, and light. The stranger one looks, the more clever the solution turned out to be. Oh, and the one I'd actually keep? The bioluminescent fungus, not because it's the strangest, but because a living thing that quietly makes its own light in the dark, asking for nothing, is exactly the kind of thing this channel exists for. If that's your kind of weird, the next file is already on the shelf. I'll see you in the lab.